And this meeting is being recorded. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Chris Cavanero and your host for today's webinar. If by chance you miss a webinar in the future, all webinars are recorded and uploaded into SonicWall University as a course. You can access the recorded webinar at any time by clicking the Events Recorded Webinars tab on the homepage of SonicWall University. We are constantly adding new webinars and content to SonicWall University and encourage you to log in often. Thank you for taking the time to attend today's SonicWall University webinar. During the webinar, if you should have any questions, please feel free to type your question in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And now I'd like to present JP Talbot. JP, the floor is yours.
Thanks. Sorry, voice was not ready. Thanks, Christine. So I will be the first one presenting, and I also have Scott with me in California. We will do a few slides each, and I want to point out that something I didn't know yesterday, Scott also has a YouTube channel, so I would invite you to go check out what he has. I checked the videos quickly, the titles, and there was a fair amount of cool stuff he has, so go check out his channel as well. So topic for today is the switches, right? So quick agenda here. We'll obviously go through models, different architecture you can have, how to manage them, because there's different ways to manage them. Main features, we'll compare each model. We'll go through a quick demo on how to manage the switch using Wireless Network Manager, which is the cloud management interface. We'll finish with a discount that SonicWall have decided to add to every single switches we have. And of course, we'll finish with Q&A. So switch, why we need them? Of course, I'm sure you guys know switches, right? So they are pretty much the backbone of your network, right? That's where everything you need in your network that you connect them, laptop, PCs, Wi-Fi, printers, and everything. And I kind of find it funny when I said the backbone of your network reminds me of the movie, The Campaign with Will Ferrell, where he goes around and just goes like, oh, nurses are the backbone of our country, and then teachers are the backbone of our country. And then he goes see a bunch of people and end up with car installation services are the backbone of this country. So yeah, switches are the backbone of your network. That's where, again, you connect absolutely everything you have. And they can also be a great addition in terms of security if you do it right. Of course, those are managed switch. So there is a ton of cool things you can do with them, which we'll cover, of course, today. So here are the different switches we have. As you can see, the top two are 8-port switch, 10-port, then 24 and 48 ports. Some are PoEs, some are not. I like it as well because they can all be managed in the cloud, which fall into the SD branch story of SonicWall, where you can have multiple switches at multiple locations and still manage them all at once. Marketing said it's zero-touch config. Well, sorry to break it to you guys, but you will need to touch the switch to deploy it. First, you need to take it out of the box, then connect power, and then connect a network cable giving internet access, and then it's zero touch. So the switch will boot up, brand new factory default will appear in your cloud management interface for SonicWall, and from there you can do all the different configuration settings that you want. And of course, we'll touch on different deployment we can have. Some are, all the rack mount switch are 10 gig. So I have 10 gig ports. See the SFPs on the side here. So different models, we'll just have them all to appear. So as you can see, let's start with the top one. Those are 48 port switch, FPoE for full PoE, meaning all port can be PoE and the switch has enough budget to do it. There are also a 48 port that is not PoE, which is the lack of PoE mentioned here. Same for 24 port full PoE and 24 port non-PoE, a 10-port full PoE, and see here, those are SFP plus here, the 24 and 48 port. So SFP plus means 10 gigabit uplink through those SFPs. And here it's no SFP plus, just SFP. So it's a 1 gig uplink through an SFP, could be either fiber or RG45 if you want as well. So of course, the 48, 24, 10, and 8-port switch here.
Okay. So we have a myriad of SFP and SFP Plus compatibility with not only our own modules, but also some cross compatibility with other manufacturers. SonicWall's done a great job in keeping our inventory up, but this could be used as a comprehensive list for the moment. And of course, each of those SFPs, so whether they be short range, long range, twin X, of course, if you're connecting through, but just a quick picture of what all the different modules are. The 10 base T modules will do 1 or 10 gig in those SFP slots. So I'm going to go through. So PoE. So the 8-port PoE does 802.3 AF, which will run 15.4 watts. So that'll handle some of your IP phones, some of the smaller devices. All of our access points actually require AT power, with the 681 needing BT. So all of our switches from the 10, 24, and 48 will power the 621 and 641 APs up to 30 watts per channel. So console ports, right? So these use the same speed as the firewalls, 115, 8, 8, 9, and 1. So you can get into the console. There is a full CLI for them to go through. So you can configure a switch via the console, set management VLANs, those kind of things. So we're out of band management, those kind of things. So definitely working to go through and try to add a full, all the features you would normally expect in a switch. These are our own. I see there is one question with the, are these Dell switches? No, they're our own ODM. So we're not repackaging anybody else's switches. So.
Okay, and here we have a nice view of the switch. Of course, we're not going to go through every single of those 15 items. I'll just point out a few that I like. The number 3 PoE Max LED, so it's kind of a nice one. I've seen it personally in my life where I am facing issues of phone that for some reason reboot, and I am going with the phone manufacturer to get RMA, but actually I just find out that my switch PoE budget was going over and the phone didn't like running out of power. So number 3 could be a good one. And like many ITP person, I am one of those that don't read the admin guide and I shoot myself in the foot, and then I need to find out how to reset the switch. So that's how you do it. Number 7 is where you use your CD Ejector Pro 2000 or just any paperclip will do. But yeah, you do have all the LEDs and all definition. That's the small 8-port switch, so it comes with its small little power pack that you need to connect here. And all the other switch, the 10-port and up, come with that standard power connector here. So here, nothing new, still the same 15 element with LEDs and so forth. Same for the 24-port switch PoE or non-PoE, and the 48 also have all the same stuff on it. One I like is that table here. So as you can see, we show all the amount of ports. So you have 8, that switch is an 8-port plus 1 SFP and no SFP plus, so 10 gig, and total interface. And something I like, and I want you to consider when you buy switches, I've seen switches where you have a total of 10 gigabit port, but the switch is not capable of doing it in full. Like I've seen a well-known brand of switch that is around for decades, and you have like 96 port, but the total backplane is 50 gig. So I'm like, okay, so you got 96 1 gig port, but the switch cannot do more than 50. So that's something to consider and something I like here. So those are 1 gig port. Of course, theoretically, you could download 1 gig and upload 1 gig at the same time and have 10 ports doing it, which would be hard to achieve, but maximum theoretical max you could do with 10 port at 1 gig, upload and download at the same time is 20 gig, and the switch can do it. The same here, so 12 port, multiply that by 2, so that's 24. That one is slightly short. See here, we got to 24 port, so that's 40. Let's do the math quick here. Of course, the calculator doesn't show the right place. So 40 for 4 port at 10 gig plus 24. That's 64 times 2. So, 128. That one is spot on. And 128. So we're good. So when I prepared for that webinar, I screwed up the math apparently. So as you can see, we're good. So 128 and here all those ports. So, that's something to keep in mind. What's the backplane of the switch? Can it really do the performance of all the port it has? So that one can. Also, some of you may require switches without fan because maybe they are in an environment where it's pretty dusty. So it could be interesting to have a switch that doesn't have any fan, or would be in an office next to the desk of someone working. So you don't want to have a small buzzing fan next to you all day. So that's pretty nice that the small switch don't have fan. And here we do have PoE budget. So that's here when we mentioned like full PoE and PoE. So see here 55 watt of power. And if I do the math again, we do have 8 ports at 15 watts. So that would be a maximum theoretical of 120 watt, but here that one is 55. So that's why it's not stated as a full PoE. But if we pick, let's say, PoE is here. So this one, so that's 24 port times 15 watts, so it's 360, but the switch can do 410. So, it can do full PoE. So every single port can do AT PoE, which is 15 watt. And of course, we'll still have budget left for a few AT, which is 30 watt as well. And you do have power consumption, form factor, and so forth. So I like the spec that they came out with. Full PoE is really nice. The backplane that can sustain every single port, upload and download the max you could theoretically do. That's pretty nice as well.
So we have a number of management options. It has a local web GUI that you can get to, CLI, of course, firewall management for part of the SD branch story, right? NSM, as you're managing your firewalls from that. So it'd still be firewall managed, but you can manage the firewall from NSM and configure the switch. And then, of course, WNN, which is our wireless network manager that controls both APs and switches. So switches that are managed by the firewalls, right? So we have firewall management. Once you add in, you can come in, you add that the switch model, serial number, IP address, those kind of things. Auto discovery, it can be enabled, so it actually makes it really easy on that interface to go ahead and auto discover the switches and provision them in. And that's a longer process as far as going through how to do that, but it's about as simple as either manually adding them with the different information or doing the auto discovery, and then you just authorize that switch for management. It'll go ahead and reset the config, update firmware, those kind of things. So daisy chain. So you can actually go up to 8 levels, which is pretty much the end of spanning tree, right? 7 levels there. So in between the switches. So this is new in the firmware of the firewall. I believe that's just was as of 5030 on the Gen 7s. So make sure that your firewalls are up to date. Again, this is where you'll see those different modules. The different switches can be expanded out. So that's quite a bit for most small, medium offices. I'd say small offices. What's nice is you do need a uplink per zone from the firewall to that top level switch, but all of those VLANs and zones will be available all the way down each switch below that in the chain. So works out pretty easy to configure, list view. There's a number of different daisy chain scenarios you can do, right? So here's just kind of a list of those that the firewall will support. Again, this is as of firmware 5030. Before that, the level was 4. So just to let you know, there's a significant difference between those two. Check your scenario though. If you have any questions, talk to your local SE or your partner, and we'll certainly go through all of the different supported. But as you can see, there's quite a few configurations that can be done. With the 10 gig uplink ports, you can actually get a pretty high speed backplane running between multiple switches and light up, multiple stacks at 10 gig connectivity. So there's a great way. You can do a loop around where if you take the bottom switch up to the top, Spanning Tree will allow that through. So if you are running them in order, it does give you the ability to have Spanning Tree kick into effect and then go ahead and allow you to have some resiliency in your stack. So here are some of those basic topologies, right? Common uplink may be the fact that I may have an X0 interface with a virtual interface to a different zone, those kind of things, right? So that's a common uplink where you'll have multiple zones coming up a common. Dedicated uplink, we had two. If I go back to our slide that has the firewall here, if I were to add a DMZ interface and it was on X5, for instance, then I would go ahead and cross connect X5 over to the switch and apply that port as a uplink, a dedicated uplink port, and then all of those, that VLAN and those zone, that DMZ zone would then be available on on the core switch as well as every switch below that. So we'll run through those real quick. Of course, the hybrid, between common and dedicated could certainly be done. So if you had a 10 gig uplink from a firewall but needed to do DMZ or IoT, guest wireless, those kind of things with dedicated uplinks, you can certainly do that. Isolated links, of course, you can always have a layer 2 network or a zone. For maintenance, you don't have to have a gateway to come across. And there are the ability to be able to do HA configurations with dedicated uplinks, whether using redundant connections on the firewall or cabling with HA firewall units. Most of the time through the firewall versus doing a LAN group, going in and creating a second interface and setting it up for redundancy in the advanced column works really well. If you have two switches at the top and two firewalls and you want to create that X configuration between, use the redundant ports, that works very well. Of course, all the VLANs have dedicated uplinks, and of course you can set up trunks with the switches. So you have the default VLAN where the access point management will land, and then of course any of the SSIDs will drop on tag ports. So you have a full ability to have 8 different SSIDs on different VLANs plus the management VLAN on the AP. So it gives you a fair amount of configuration and flexibility to be able to do that. So switch features and protocols, right? So this is what we are used to seeing if you've been in the switch world for a while. SD branch ready, right? That's firewall, being able to manage the APs and the switches from the firewall. Zero touch deployment. So you can actually go ahead, register these in my SonicWall, click the zero touch, and it'll pop up in the WNM. The moment a switch is added to a zone, it inherits those policies. So that gives you more of that stacking-like structure where a policy will run across multiple switches. So you don't have to manage every switch individually. You can create a policy and even layer a couple policies. So you could set up with a closet with one policy that runs across a series of switches, and then have a default policy that runs company-wide. So there's a number of different things you can do. We do on my YouTube channel, I do have a WNM course. JP has some wonderful videos all over the place on his channel. So check us out. We're resources for you. And of course, 10 gig, 1 gig. We are working on a multi-gig switch, but that's yet to be mentioned yet. And then of course the Spanning Tree, LLDP, voice VLAN, right? Quality of service, jumbo frames. So we do support jumbo frames up to 9K, 802.1x. So if you want to run that against radius, dynamic VLANing, those kind of things, that's available. Port mirroring, if you're doing any packet sniffing, those kind of things. And of course, VLANs, LACP, those kind of things. So hit the SonicWall switch PDF at the bottom for that data sheet. It'll give you a full set with Spanning Tree for loop prevention, definitely is at the top there. So again, when you're stacking them, go ahead and connect the bottom to the top, and Spanish will take care of that, but we'll give you some resiliency if you lose a switch somewhere in the middle of your stack. So I'll take it over to JP.
Yep. Okay, so next is a quick demo of deployment and configuration of those switches using WNM.
Let's start by talking about our use case. This use case will give us the basics to start building the lab. There is not enough time in one session to see all the possibilities Sonic Wall switches can offer to us. So we are going to work mainly with WNM console and network segmentation. Let's begin. Rent-A-Wheel is a new company specializing in car rental at major airports around the world. Headquarters is located at Madrid Airport. A new office has been opened at Barcelona Airport. For perimeter security, it has been deployed a Sonic Wall TC570 Essential Edition with NSM Advanced, which includes management, reporting, and analytics. Firewall is already registered under the Rent-A-Wheel tenant, as well as one wireless access point, Sonic Wave 681. Our mission is to prepare the network to incorporate a Sonic Wall switch and connect all the required networking devices to it. Switch will be managed by WNM console located at Capture Security Center single pane of glass. The switch will have to provide connectivity to the following devices: 4 times PCs, point of sales or printers, sharing the links with 2 PoE IP phones, 1 wireless access point, Sonic Wave 681 providing 2 SSIDs for corporate and customer users, 1 PoE IP camera, and 1 IP PBX. This is a list of tasks that must be complete for the lab. Register the switch at My Sonic Wall. We are going to choose WNM or Wireless Network Management Console as the management option. We will create a new location for the switch and the access point. Under this location, we will create a new zone. Next, we will create a switch policy. This policy is the one that will contain the configuration for the switch. And these are the modifications we will do. Change the admin default password, disable firmware auto upgrades, change the time zone. We will enable spanning tree protocol for loop detection. We will enable LLDP for network device discovery, enable voice VLAN for our IP phones. We will enable quality of service. We will enable loopback detection, set up port description and enable PoE at ports. We will create the required VLANs to give connectivity to the network devices. Then we will continue by setting up access and trunk ports for the corresponding VLANs. After setting up the switch policy, we will add it to the zone we have previously created. We will add the switch and the access point to the zone. And last but not least, we will verify network device connectivity. To get a better idea of what the network topology we are trying to build, this is a physical representation of the network for Barcelona office. TC570 is already configured with the virtual interfaces for every VLAN or network segment, zones, DHCP scopes for every network, internet connection, security services, as well as many other features. Next device is our switch. This is the one we are going to deploy into the network. TC and switch connection is done by a twin-edge cable at 1 gigabit per second. This same link is the one that will carry traffic for all the VLANs, including the native VLAN 1. Switch port 1 is going to be associated with VLAN 10 for PCs and VLAN 27 for IP phones. On this case, we are going to enable voice VLAN. Switch ports 2, 3, 4, and 5 will have the same configuration as port 1, just in case we require to add more PCs or IP phones. Switch port 6 will be associated to VLAN 27 for the IP PBX server. Switch port 7 will carry traffic for the SSIDs guest and corporate. So in this case, we are going to configure this port as trunk port to allow more than one VLAN to pass through the link. Last but not least, switch port 8 will carry traffic for VLAN 12, where we are going to connect an IP camera. The table shows us information for the VLAN IDs and network addresses we are going to use. Now we have all the information we need. Let's continue and start building our lab. Our first step is to register the new switch for Barcelona. We start by connecting to my SonicWall web portal. We enter our credentials. We are presented a list of tenants that already exist. We continue by clicking on Register Products. Remember, our tenant was already created for us and hosts the firewall and the Sonic Wave. So we select Rent a Wheel as our tenant to register the switch. We enter the serial number for the switch. Now we enter the authentication code. Next, we enter a friendly name for the switch. We continue by clicking at Choose Management Options. We are going to manage the switch from WNM, so we select Cloud and click on Done. We can see a green message with the confirmation for the switch has been added to the tenant. We are now presented with information about the switch. In order to access WNM, we have two options. Click on Services, Available Services, and click on Capture Security Center. The second option there is to enter into cloud.sonicwall.com. We select the tenant we are going to work with. In our case, it is Rent a Wheel. We can see management consoles there. We are interested in Wireless Network Manager and we click on it. The dashboard already shows us the existence of one access point and one switch. Let's go to Network menu and click on Devices. Omit by now the status for the access point. Let's click on Switches. We can see at this screen the switch have been already registered from my SonicWall. Be aware that the switch status is unmanaged. We will see it online once we include it on a zone. We now need to add the switch and the access point to a zone. So we are going to create a new Barcelona zone for these devices. Let's click on Network Hierarchy. There is already a topology there, but this is only for the headquarter office located at Madrid. The next step is to create a location and a zone for the Barcelona airport. We pass the mouse over Rent a Wheel Madrid headquarter and click on Add Location or Zone. Click on Add Location. We enter a name for the new location. It is going to be Rent a Wheel Barcelona. And we enter an address for this new location. Let's click on OK. We pass the mouse over the new Rent a Wheel Barcelona location and click on Add Location or Zone. This time we select to add a new zone named Barcelona Airport. And we click on OK. Click on Zones. And we can verify we have there our new zone. But it is empty. We do not see any products in there. What we can do now is to edit the new zone. From here, we can select the policies for the access point and the switches. These policies will contain the configuration these devices need to run under the company requirements. The policy for the access point was already created for us, so we can select it now. The one we need to select is Barcelona AP policy. There is only one switch policy there, and it is the default. We leave this option as it is by now. On next steps, we are going to create our new switch policy for Barcelona switch. Click on OK. Let's click on Policies. Click on Switch Policies. We see only one switch policy, and it is the default at WNM. We want to create our new switch policy for Barcelona switch. Let's create it by clicking on Add Switch Policy. A new window is presented with 5 main tabs options. Let's stay here with the General tab. We give a name to the switch policy. Let's change the default password for the admin user. We are going to disable the auto upgrade option. Let's change the time zone for this switch policy and set it for Europe. And we are going to leave VLAN ID 1 as the management VLAN. Let's jump into the System tab. We are going to leave spanning tree protocol to avoid loops on the network. We are going to leave this option enabled with the default configuration. We are also going to leave enabled LLDP for network device discovery. We are going to enable voice VLAN, and we are going to set the voice VLAN ID to 27. We leave quality of service enabled. We are not using multicast IGMP snooping, no DHCP snooping. We are not using this time DHCP relay. We are going to leave loopback detection enabled. We are not changing the frames for the MTU size. We are not using multicast filtering, not port security. We don't need any static routes to be defined at the switch. We are not going to enable DOS for the switch. No radio server needed, no mirror settings this time. We are not going to change the address resolution protocol timeout. We are not going to change or add static MAC address tables. And we are not using SNMP protocol. Let's go all the way to the top. Click on Ports tab, select the model for the switch we are setting. And from the General tab, we are going to change the description for the ports we are going to connect our devices. So we have set ports 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be used by PCs or IP phones. Port 6 is going to be connected to the IP PBX system. We are going to connect the access point to port 7. This is AP 681. And we are going to connect the IP cam to port 8. Ports 9 and 10 are going to be our uplinks. The one we are using is port 9, so this is the uplink to our TC570. And port 10 is going to be our free uplink. Let's jump into the PoE tab, and we can verify that we have PoE enabled on all the ports. We can leave this as it is. So let's jump into the VLAN tab and select the switch we are going to set up. At the general menu, we are going to add our first VLAN. This one is going to be the VLAN 10 for the PCs. Ports that are going to be tagged are 9 and 10. These are our uplinks. And the untagged ports, or the ports that are going to give connection to the devices are 1 to 5. We save changes and we do the same for the next VLAN. The next VLAN is going to be VLAN 12 for the IP camera. Target ports, again 9 to 10. And target ports, the port where we are going to connect the IP camera is port 8. Save changes. We add one more VLAN. This one is going to be the VLAN 13. VLAN 13 is for the wireless SSID guest service. This time the target port is going to be the one that the access point is connected to. In this case is port 7 and 9 to 10. Save changes here. We add another VLAN 14. This one is for the SSID corporate. Same configuration as the VLAN 13 for the target ports, and we save changes. Last but not least, we have to create VLAN 27. This is our voice VLAN. Target ports are going to be 9 to 10. And the untarget port is going to be the one that connects to the IP PBX. That is port 6. We save changes. And we have finished configuring the switch policy. We can now do a click on OK. Let's go back to zones. We click on Edit Barcelona Airport Zone. Now we can see this new Barcelona switch policy we have created. We select it, and the next step is to add the devices to our new zone. These two devices are the Sonic Wave access point 681 and our new switch. We select them both and we click on Add. Don't worry, we will see these two devices disconnected or offline, and there is a very good reason for that. They are turned off and disconnected from the network. Turn them on and we check this again. We click on OK, and we will wait for these two devices to appear online. Okay, after a few seconds, we can see now that the access point and the switch are online under the Barcelona Airport zone. So we are in a good position now to start doing our verifications. I am going to start by connecting to the PC and see what IP address has been assigned to it. I am connected to this Windows 10 PC. I can see I have internet connection, and I would like to check the IP address that has been assigned to it. It is supposed that is VLAN 10 and the network address 192.168.10.something. So this is correct. We have been assigned this IP address 10.112. This is working well. Next step, we are going to check the wireless connection for both SSIDs, the corporate and the guest SSIDs. Let's try to connect to the corporate SSID service. This is the one, Barcelona Corporate. Connect. We have to enter the password. Next. And we are connected to Barcelona Corporate SSID. Let's check the IP address we have been assigned. So that is correct. We are in VLAN 14, and we have been assign an IP address for that VLAN. That's good. Let's try and do the same with the guest SSID. Barcelona guest, connect, enter our password. Next, yes. We are connected. Let's check again the IP address. VLAN 13, this is the correct network address. All good. Last but not least, we have to check connectivity with the IP PBX and the two IP phones that are connected to port 1 and 2 at the switch. Let's first check connectivity to the IP PBX management. This is good. Let's enter our credentials. Let's change Spanish to English. And let's go for the extension trunk, extensions. I can see both IP phones in idle status, extension 1000 and extension 1001. Both of the IP phones have been assigned an IP address for the voice VLAN, 192.168.27. This is the VLAN 27. Let's do one more test and try to call from one telephone to another one. Yes, they are working. And with that, we have finished our verifications with the switch configuration.
I was about to say thanks to Sebastian, but so if I go back here now to the promo that we have. So here, SonicWall did, let's say, adjust pricing on switches. So you will have a pretty significant discount until the end of, from now until the end of July of this year. Of course, it's a 35% discount on every single switch. So you get more details here. And also if you are interested in getting one, of course, contact your reseller. And if you are the reseller, well, I trust you know how to get your pricing. And if not, you can reach out to your local salespeople. We're always here and always happy to help you out. So again, thanks for your time. Jean-Pierre Talbot and Scott was with me, with us as well. So here's our contact information if you ever want to chat or have questions that we didn't answer during this presentation. And Scott, we're sharing my screen, so I did not look at questions at all. Do you have something that is unanswered or something you wanted to answer live?
I've been typing away here. Most of them I have answered. You can, let's see here, email me. If I didn't answer your question, please email myself. And I'll work on getting those answers. Not everything was in the purview of this particular webinar, but we actually had some great questions. And so, and again, we'll share the partner or the MSRP pricing, but all of our switches have been slashed at 35%. So it's a great presentation. It's a time to kind of get through. We actually have switches and had switches through most of the pandemic. So from a supply chain point of view, we've been pretty solid.
That's a good point.
I believe about three days. We definitely were able to get into deals from other vendors because they were 6 months out. So SonicWall really has been top of its game from a resource management point of view. If I didn't answer your email, I will certainly look through and answer them afterwards or get a list. Feel free to email myself or JP. We'll be happy to answer what we can. I believe you can manage the switch. Trenton York had a question. Can you manage the switch from the CLI or the GUI? Yes, you should be able to do that. I did post in one of the answers a link to the switch CLI reference guide so that you can take a look at that. The GUI is a whole lot friendlier, but you absolutely can if you're old school and like to type. I came from a previous life there where, yeah, the first thing I did was go to a prompt, right? GUIs were, kind of frowned upon, but it is much friendlier to go through that way. But you can do it either way. So if you need
Back in the day where GUI was based on Java and tend to be crashy.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm most comfortable in a hash prompt there. Costa asked a question of whether we're using Linux BSD or our own proprietary Sonic OS. I believe our switches are running on our own operating system right now. I think other than that, I don't see too many. A rack mount kit does get sent with every switch. So even the smaller 8-port switches come with a rack mount kit in the package. So you should be able to rack mount any one of the switches, including the desktop switches as well. NFRs are available for all the partners out there. We'll certainly go through. JP, do you have a link to the promo? If not, we can certainly, yeah, if you grab that link and Anthony, actually answer that. If you could throw that in the his question there and go ahead and throw that in the answer so everybody has a copy of that. That would be great.
Where do I chat is for us?
Yeah, go through the Q&A there with Anthony. So
here, new paste, yep. Type answer to everyone. There you go. That should do it.
Right. And we're constantly looking at some of the different features on the switches to upgrade from, moving the default, the default VLAN can be moved now, so you don't have to leave your switches on default one. I know that was an answer that support gave, but you can move them and you can move them. Just make sure you have switch ports already assigned so that virtual IP address can be accessible on another connected port. Don't strand your switch. There is a KB up on how to correct that if you change the management VLAN and forget to do that. Don't ask me who wrote it, and who would do that. But there are some KBs out there to help you out on that. There have been a lot of different evolutions where we've including all of this. So we are working on trying to address a lot of the different concerns. We do market the switches as a layer 2 switch. We do actually have, including the management VLAN, you can statically route 4 VLANs. They would obviously all have to be in the same security zone, but you can do some light routing on the switches, at least the 24 and 48 port. I've not tried to do that on a 10 port. That would be an awful lot of routing for 2 ports per VLAN, but the 24 and 48 ports, you can route up to 4. So we do have very limited layer 3 capabilities currently, but it would allow you to manage inside of the same security zone, so to speak. Other than that, I don't see too many more questions that have come in that I haven't answered. If I haven't, please go ahead and forward it in. The warranty, I was asked what the warranty was. As long as you have support on it, the warranty continues, just like any of our products. I believe if you buy just a bare switch, you're at 90 days, I believe. And it has to be, hardware issue. But all of our switches come bundled with WNM management and support coming through. So anything other than the bare SKU, the web management and the warrant and support, tech support, firmware updates, all of that are included in that SKU. So appreciate everyone spending their time coming today and taking some time to look into it. But again, our switches can be managed from the local UI, command, CLI if you need to, WNM, the firewall, right? There's a lot of different options based on your environment. If you have questions or how to hook them up in a certain way, hit your local partner or SE. And if you're not sure who, let me know, or JP. We're happy to steer you to the right person. So
We'll track them down.
we'll track them down, dogged and relentless. So once the license expires, you technically, at least through WNM, I don't believe you can upgrade the firmware. John asked that. You're able to update the firmware when the license expires. We don't effectively lock it out, but if you're going through the web management and the web management expired, we don't stop. Our equipment will continue to function as is, but you wouldn't be able to do that firmware update through the tool. You would have to get into the local UI after downloading it from MySonicWall. So other than that, thank you very much. Appreciate everyone's time.
Yep. Thanks for your time, everyone. And again, if you have questions, don't be shy. Just send us a quick email. Apparently, it's our job. So don't be shy.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, Scott. And we'd like to thank everyone for attending today. This meeting is ended, and you may now disconnect. Have a great day.